concretize this with an example of our work with Quest Alliance and their intervention, which comprised a few things, including a responsible AI analysis of their tool, helping build prompt-level guardrails for their tool, tackling edge cases which surfaced, and finally, helping edit the intervention's theory of change and anchoring plans on monitoring, learning, and evaluation back to this TOC. And finally, some takeaways and next steps which can hopefully be useful for everybody in the room. So with regards to our engagement, this broadly comprised of weekly virtual one-on-one sessions with 3 of the 7 NGOs, so Quest Alliance, Inkilab, and Sneha. Then we had larger thematic and activity-oriented workshops catered to the larger cohort, as well as one-off ad hoc one-on-one advisory for other NGOs that might have needed help in thinking through some of their RAI concerns. And underpinning this all, of course, research and assessments of an interventions theory of change, what RAI issues might need priority interventions, and their MLE plans, and so on and so forth. These activities, we hope, nudged organizations to start systemizing their thinking about responsible AI, because that can often become relegated to being an afterthought in this process. So our first workshop, we asked participants to list what the potential risks and then first order, second order, third order consequences could be of their AI tools. In the second workshop, which is the last time we met in person, we went into further detail on one of these very listed risks, which was of over-reliance, where we nudged participants to think about situations where their user might start blindly trusting the AI tool at the cost of their own thinking. So what this also comprised of was thinking about how can you induct sort of some cognitive bumps to prevent the risk of automation bias from taking over. Further sessions focused on helping build guardrails, which was limits and rules to be set around the AI. And finally, building an MLE framework for your intervention and mapping it to your theory of change. A concrete example of this engagement is the work that we've been doing with Quest Alliance, who are building a learning assistance chatbot called Ask Abhi, which aims to help ITI and VTI students learn content from their employability skills curriculum, as well as encouraging upskilling and leveling up in certain learning behaviors, such as curiosity and reflection. One of the first things we did was conduct a responsible AI analysis of the Ask Abhi bot based on the initial concept note. So what we did here was charted some queries along the axis of principles of responsible AI and any corresponding concerns or issues that might crop up, such as accountability. So one of the things that did emerge through this exercise was a potential issue of training data needs propped up. So what that means is the very, very initial reliance for data for training the model was in synthetic data for user queries for the bot. Now the concern that comes here is of data validity and representativeness of the bot. If a bot is only trained on fakely created examples, the answers it might give an actual student might not be very well be grounded in their lived context or reality. So Quest did a lot of things to address that. Firstly, they also sent out a survey to gather what actual on-ground user queries might look like from the actual students. So they were able to gather over 1,600 responses. To add to that, we also had an internal discussion which led to realizing the team can rely on internal student data that already exists with them thanks to other programs that the team has been running for years. All of this put together added to creating a much more grounded data set than would have been the case had the model been trained only on synthetic data. Ever since this, there's also been multiple rounds of beta testing and some field testing that has occurred to help a more grounded data set. Now, as model training was underway, another thing that we did was help build prompt-level guardrails to address any out-of-scope query or the risk of over-reliance. To bring back some context, over-reliance is something that occurs when you as a user will blindly trust an AI output without verifying its accuracy. Now, particularly in an Ask Abhi user, over-reliance may manifest as a decline in their own critical thinking, as well as a growing unreliance on actual human members of the community. So that might be your actual ITI or VTI mentor, or your friend, or your family members. So what we did was help build these guardrails to address, for example, if a student asks any questions on their personal life or sensitive topics, the guardrails we built helped instruct the bot to not answer any of these questions, instead say and communicate to the user they are not equipped to answer the query at hand, and also very, very importantly, encourage the user to approach a trusted human member of their community. So while the initial guardrails that we provided worked fairly well, in the course of testing, some edge cases surfaced. So for example, a user may have sought some sort of medical advice or expressed wanting to cause harm to themselves or somebody else. Now, while the bot did clarify they are not equipped to answer the query at hand, it did not immediately stop the entire conversation. There was some sort of follow-up that was happening. At the same time, in some cases, it was also not redirecting the user to a human member of the community. So what we then did was provide an additional list of guardrails in the form of an overarching list of disallowed topics. So anything concerning medical advice, anything concerning violence to self or others, or any illegal activities, the bot was to stop all topic-related reasoning, say they are not equipped to answer, and at the same time, nudge them to approach a human member of the community. Finally, through our final workshop, we helped the team edit the theory of change. And in practical terms, that means we asked what specific actions or activities are needed for Ask-A-Bee to achieve its desired outputs. What indicators do you need for you to know that the bot is actually working? We also helped them define some intermediate outcomes in the sense that the student is actually completing more modules in the curriculum, as well as some longer-term impact metrics that are overall learning outcomes increasing? Is the user feeling confident as a result of engaging with Ask-A-Bee? We then helped the team build a simple MLE, monitoring, learning, and evaluation dashboard in line with a very useful framework provided by the agency fund, which asks you to map metrics along the levels of model, product, user, and impact. Now, the purpose of this activity is not just to track technical accuracy. This will not just be, is Ask-A-Bee providing accurate answers to the user? Is it using and referring to the knowledge base accurately? But also think about things like, does using the bot favorably influence your users' thoughts, feelings, and actions? Do I, as a VTI student, feel more confident in my skills, in doing actual things after using the bot, as well as longer impact? Now, Quest, through this work, is not just building a working chatbot. It has a safer and more community-aware, context-aware tool. Their active will and work on embedding RAI principles is helping ensure that Ask-A-Bee is very well augmenting somebody's thinking and learning and growth, but not ultimately replacing their thinking or the ultimate need for human connection. So drawing from these experiences, we hope there are some lessons and takeaways for multiple stakeholders who are involved in building AI in the impact space. Firstly, for those building, it was very important to anchor your theory of change, use your theory of change as an anchor for your MLE plans. It is very important to know the interventions why at each stage and be very clear about the output, outcomes, and impact at each stage. Following up from that, what you then do is view your monitoring, learning, and evaluation as an evidence and feedback loop to ensure that your TOC is working as planned. To the point of evidence, especially those placed in this room, it becomes very important to map bottoms-up evidence of AI-related risks and harms, as well as positives. Why I'm saying this is something that the very recently released AI governance guidelines also talk about this, that we have a gap in actual evidence, actual proofs of concept to know what is working versus what is not. So those who are building are very well placed to plug in this very gap. Secondly, for multiple stakeholders, not just the developers, but social scientists like me, funders and philanthropists, it's very important to embrace, not even tolerate, embrace trial and error as a feature and not a bug of building RAI. There is no blanket solution for any use case, any sector. We've seen that. RAI in itself is a process of discovery. Learnings on what not to do are as important as on what works and what to do. In our work, we saw that every round of testing raised new questions and every revision made the AI safer. So it is truly an act of learning, doing learning again, which is what we've seen happen. And finally, responsible AI cannot be operationalized in a vacuum. It needs multiple stakeholders, technologists, social scientists, philanthropists coming together to realize it on the ground. One of the biggest active examples is this very room, right? In just a very small 3-4 month engagement, we saw that when multiple perspectives, sources of expertise, resources come together, the whole of RAI is greater than the sum of its parts. And like Rikin said in the session before me, cross-pollination is a great idea, and that's something we should actively work towards. So hence, it's very critical that I think we continue collaborating to actually help realize AI that is fair, transparent, safe, and ultimately building a more inclusive future for all. With that, I'll end the session.